You think you know what betrayal feels like until your daughter accepts a business award and tells 200 people she built her success alone while you're sitting in the audience holding the loan papers you never asked her to repay. I'm a 69-year-old mother who gave my daughter $87,000 to start her dream bakery, and last month I watched her erase me from her success story in front of cameras and investors. What I did next wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. Let me be completely clear about what happened. My daughter Sophie stood on the stage accepting the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award and said these exact words, "I did this entirely on my own. No one believed in me. No one helped me. Every dollar came from my own sacrifice." I was sitting in the 5th row. I'd taken out a second mortgage on my house to fund her startup costs. She looked directly at me while she said it, and her expression didn't change at all. I worked as a dental hygienist for 41 years. I raised Sophie and her younger brother after their father left when she was 7. I picked up weekend shifts at nursing homes to afford their school supplies. I taught them that honesty mattered more than success, that credit belonged to people who earned it, that lying about your journey was the fastest way to lose your character. I thought Sophie understood those lessons. I was wrong. Sophie always loved baking. Even as a child, she'd spend hours in our tiny kitchen creating elaborate cakes from boxed mixes. By high school, she was taking custom orders for birthday parties. In college, she studied business but worked part-time at a bakery, learning techniques and building recipes. After graduation, she worked at a corporate bakery for 3 years, hating every minute of it, dreaming of opening her own place. I watched her save money slowly, watched her frustration grow, watched her dream feel further away every year. 2 years ago, she came to me with a business plan. She'd found a small retail space in an up-and-coming neighborhood. She had supplier contacts, a menu concept, financial projections that actually made sense. She needed $87,000 for the lease deposit, equipment, initial inventory, permits, and 6 months of operating expenses. She'd saved $19,000 herself. She needed the rest. Banks wouldn't loan to her without collateral or a longer business history. Her credit was good, but thin. She asked if I could help. Not give, she said very specifically, but loan. She promised to pay me back once the business stabilized. She showed me repayment projections. She talked about interest rates and timelines. She made it sound like a business transaction, not a favor. I had some savings, about $30,000, that I'd accumulated over decades of careful budgeting. It wasn't enough. So I went to my bank and took out a second mortgage on my house. The house I'd bought 27 years ago that I'd almost paid off, that represented my only real financial security. I borrowed $57,000 against it. Combined with my savings, I could give Sophie exactly what she needed. I didn't tell her about the mortgage at first. I didn't want her to feel guilty or pressured. I just told her I could provide the full amount. We signed a simple loan agreement that she drafted, stating she'd begin repayment within 2 years at 3% interest. We both signed it. She cried and hugged me and said she'd never forget what I was doing for her, that she'd make me proud, that this was going to change both our lives. The bakery opened 14 months ago. Sophie named it Harvest Moon Bakery. She didn't ask my opinion on the name. She didn't invite me to help set up. She sent me a photo of the sign going up and a text saying, "Thank you." On opening day, I showed up with flowers. She was busy with customers and barely acknowledged me. I told myself she was just overwhelmed, that once things settled, she'd have more time. The business took off faster than anyone expected. Sophie's aesthetic was perfect for Instagram. Her pastries photographed beautifully. Food bloggers discovered her within the first month. Lines formed outside on weekend mornings. By month 6, she'd hired 3 employees. By month 9, she was featured in the local magazine's Best New Businesses issue. I was so proud I bought 10 copies of that magazine. I waited for repayment to start. The 2-year mark was still ahead, so I wasn't worried, but I did expect acknowledgement. Maybe a conversation about timelines or an update on how close she was to beginning payments. Nothing came. When I gently brought it up during one of our brief phone calls, she said the business was still building reserves and that she'd let me know when she was ready. Her tone made it clear the conversation was over. I noticed other things too. Sophie started posting about her journey on social media, long captions about sacrifice and struggle, about working 3 jobs to save money, about believing in herself when no one else did. She never mentioned me, not once, not even vaguely. Every post was about her singular determination, her refusal to give up, her independence. When family friends congratulated me on Sophie's success, I'd mentioned that I'd helped fund it. Some of them looked confused. A few said Sophie had told them she'd done it completely alone, that she was especially proud of being self-funded. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. My daughter was actively erasing my contribution from her story. I tried to talk to her about it 3 months ago. I called and asked if we could meet for coffee. She said she was too busy, but we could talk on the phone. I explained gently that I'd noticed she never mentioned my loan in her posts or interviews, and that it hurt to be erased from her journey. She got quiet. Then she said she didn't think she needed to publicize our private financial arrangement, that it would make her look less credible if people knew her mother had funded her, that successful entrepreneurs were supposed to be self-made. I told her there was a difference between privacy and lying. She said she wasn't lying, just controlling her narrative. She said in the business world, perception mattered more than details. She said I should be happy she was successful instead of worrying about credit. Then she said she had to go. She hung up before I could respond. That conversation told me everything. Sophie had decided that my $87,000, my second mortgage, my 30 years of savings, all of it was inconvenient to her image. She'd rewritten her origin story to fit the bootstrap entrepreneur narrative that investors and media loved. I wasn't part of that story because mothers who sacrifice don't generate the same headlines as scrappy young women who overcome odds alone. I stopped calling as much after that. Sophie didn't notice. She was too busy with the bakery, with press interviews, with the business awards she kept winning. Every article described her the same way, self-made, self-funded, proof that determination alone could build success. I read each one feeling more invisible. Then came the Entrepreneur of the Year ceremony last month. Sophie texted me the invitation. Not a phone call, a text. Mom, I'm getting an award next Thursday at the convention center. Starts at 7. You can come if you want. If I want. Like I was an acquaintance, not the person who'd made her dream possible. I went anyway. I wore my best dress. I sat in the audience surrounded by business leaders and investors. I watched Sophie accept her award looking polished and confident in a designer suit I knew cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. I listened to her speech. She talked about her struggles, her vision, her persistence. She said, I did this entirely on my own. No one believed in me, no one helped me. Every dollar came from my own sacrifice. The audience applauded. Cameras flashed. Sophie smiled. I sat there with my purse in my lap, inside of which was a folder I'd brought containing our loan agreement, my mortgage documents, and bank statements showing every transfer I'd made to her business account. I'd brought them hoping I wouldn't need them, hoping Sophie would acknowledge me even briefly, hoping I was wrong about how completely she'd erased me. But she didn't mention me. She thanked her employees. She thanked her suppliers. She thanked her landlord for taking a chance on her. She looked directly at me during that last part, and I knew she saw me, but her expression was blank. Then she walked off stage to congratulations and champagne. I sat through the rest of the ceremony in a fog. When it ended, people swarmed Sophie. I waited on the periphery. Finally, she noticed me. She came over, still holding her award, and asked what I thought. I told her very quietly that her speech was a lie. She glanced around to see if anyone heard, then pulled me aside to a quiet corner. She asked what my problem was. I said my problem was that she'd just told 200 people she'd built her business alone when she knew that wasn't true. She said I was being dramatic. She said she'd meant emotionally alone, that no one had believed in her vision. I asked if that included me. She didn't answer. I asked when she planned to start repaying the loan. She said she was still building reserves. I asked her why she could afford designer suits, but not a single payment toward the $87,000 she owed me. Her face hardened. She said I was trying to ruin her night. She said successful people didn't dwell on the past. She said if I'd really wanted to help her, I wouldn't be asking for the money back. I told her we had a signed agreement. She said agreements between family were just formalities, that I couldn't seriously expect her to pay me back like a bank. I told her that's exactly what I expected, because that's exactly what we'd agreed to. She called me selfish. She said I was jealous of her success. She said a real mother would be happy to support her daughter without keeping score. Then she walked away. She went back to her admirers and left me standing there alone with my folder of documents and the clear understanding that my daughter had never intended to repay me or acknowledge me. I drove home that night with perfect clarity. I'd spent 2 years telling myself Sophie was just busy, just overwhelmed, just waiting for the right time. But the truth was simpler and uglier. She'd taken my money, rewritten history to exclude me, and now expected me to accept being erased because asking for truth or repayment made me the villain in her narrative. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not to sue Sophie, not yet, but to understand my options. I brought the loan agreement, all my documentation, everything. My lawyer reviewed it and said the agreement was legally binding. Sophie owed me $87,000 plus the agreed 3% interest. After 2 years, that was roughly $92,000. The agreement stated repayment should begin within 2 years. We were past that mark. My lawyer drafted a formal demand letter. It outlined the loan amount, the repayment terms Sophie had agreed to, and requested a repayment plan within 30 days. It was professional, not emotional. Just facts and legal obligations. I had it sent certified mail to the bakery. Sophie called me 3 days later screaming. She said I was trying to destroy her. She said sending legal documents to her business was humiliating and unprofessional. She said everyone in town would hear about this and her reputation would be ruined. I stayed calm. I told her all she had to do was honor the agreement she'd signed. I told her I wasn't asking for full repayment immediately, just a reasonable payment plan. She said she didn't have the money. I told her that was interesting considering she'd just told 200 people how successful she was. She said business success didn't mean personal cash flow. I said that wasn't my problem. She'd borrowed money and signed an agreement to repay it. Either she could work with me on a payment plan, or my lawyer would proceed with filing a lawsuit. She started crying then. She said I was her mother, that mothers don't sue their daughters, that I was destroying our relationship over money. I told her she'd destroyed our relationship by lying about me publicly and then refusing to honor her word. I told her if she'd simply acknowledged my help and made even token payments, we wouldn't be here. But she'd chosen to erase me completely and keep every dollar for herself. She said she'd lose everything if this became public. I told her she should have thought about that before lying. She hung up on me. 2 weeks later, her lawyer contacted mine. Sophie was proposing a payment plan. $2,000 per month for 46 months, no interest. It wasn't what we'd agreed to, but my lawyer advised me that forcing a lawsuit would be expensive and emotionally destructive, and that this plan at least guaranteed repayment. I accepted it. The first payment arrived last week. Exactly $2,000, transferred electronically, no note attached. Sophie hasn't called me. She hasn't apologized. She's simply begun paying what she legally owes while maintaining absolute silence. But here's what she doesn't know. I also contacted 3 journalists who'd written profiles of her, including the one who covered the awards ceremony. I didn't do interviews. I simply sent them copies of our loan agreement and a brief statement. I'm Sophie Chen's mother. I provided the funding for Harvest Moon Bakery. Her narrative about being self-made and self-funded is factually incorrect. I'm sharing this because truth matters. One journalist has already updated her online article to include a correction noting that the business received family funding. Another contacted Sophie for comment. I don't know what Sophie told them, but I do know her carefully crafted story is starting to show cracks. Some people think I went too far. My sister says I'm being vindictive, that I should have just accepted the payment plan and moved on. My neighbor says families should handle things privately. Maybe they're right about the vindictive part. Maybe contacting journalists was about more than truth. Maybe it was about making sure Sophie understands that erasing people has consequences. But here's what those people don't understand. This wasn't just about money. It was about my daughter looking me in the eye and lying to hundreds of people about the most significant help she'd ever received. It was about her deciding my sacrifice was inconvenient to her brand. It was about her believing she could rewrite reality, and I'd just quietly accept being deleted from her story. I spent $87,000 and took on years of additional mortgage payments because I believed in my daughter's dream. I didn't ask for public gratitude. I didn't need my name on the bakery sign. But I did expect basic honesty and the repayment she'd promised. She gave me neither. Instead, she gave me erasure and then outrage when I demanded acknowledgment. I'm 69 years old. I'll be 73 by the time Sophie finishes paying me back, assuming she doesn't default. The second mortgage on my house will take me another 7 years to pay off. I did all of this because I loved my daughter and wanted to help her succeed. She succeeded, and then she pretended I never existed. So yes, I involved lawyers. Yes, I contacted journalists. Yes, I made sure her lie became public record, not because I'm cruel, but because I refuse to be erased. I refuse to let my daughter teach the world that success means using people and then rewriting history to exclude them. Sophie and I don't speak now. She sends her monthly payments silently. I deposit them without comment. Our relationship, whatever it was, has been reduced to a financial transaction. That's sad, but it's also honest in a way our relationship hasn't been for 2 years. If she ever truly understands what she did, if she ever acknowledges that her success was built partially on my sacrifice and that lying about it was wrong, maybe we can rebuild something. But I won't hold my breath. Sophie has proven she values her image more than truth, and people who value image rarely develop the character needed for genuine accountability. I sleep fine at night. My mortgage payment is higher than I'd like, but I'm managing. My savings are depleted, but they'll rebuild slowly. What I have now that I didn't have before is my dignity. I refused to be erased. I refused to let my daughter's lie stand unchallenged. I refused to accept that maternal love means financing someone's dream and then disappearing quietly when acknowledgement becomes inconvenient. Some victories don't feel like victories. This is one of them. I got my truth out there and secured repayment, but I lost my daughter in the process. Or maybe I didn't lose her. Maybe I just finally saw clearly who she'd become, and that person was never really mine to lose. Let me know in the comments. What would you have done in this situation? And do not forget to subscribe to Golden Years Diary for more stories like this.